Okay, so I've got enough modelling done to want to then start assigning some materials to the things I've made. So I'm going to start with some of the more basic objects, like, well, I'll start with a wall, and then we'll do a floor afterwards. So I've got here some, well, I'll start with this wall. I've got some other walls that you can see facing the outside. So I'm choosing this one here because it's entirely on the inside. So I'm going to put a material on both sides. So I'm just going to go with the wall selected to edit type. So if you haven't been thinking about that button, it's time to make sure you remember it, because in properties, that's one of the most common options you need to use. So by selecting the wall, then if I go to edit type, I'm changing this wall type to generic 300mm wall. Now, I don't want all my walls to change. So I'm going to duplicate it and give it a name. So I'm going to go for a red paint finish. Oops. Red. I'm going to keep it 300mm wall. That'll do. Okay, so I've given it the name that I want. Now, to change the material, I'm going to click Edit next to Structure. In other words, I'm editing the structure of the wall. And then you can see there's only one layer here, so I don't need to assign materials to both sides. This is going to do both sides. Do you know what the other layers there are? We'll show you the preview. So if you haven't seen this before, maybe you don't know what I mean, but if you've looked at this before, you might have noticed that you've got the core boundaries there, and they come up with other things. Floors and ceilings are the same. So it's important you realise they're not layers. Only the one in the middle there is a layer. So we're over here, looking at the only layer we have. Those core boundaries are nothing. They've got 0 thickness. So to change the material, I've just clicked where it says finish. Don't worry what finish means. Finish is just the name of a material. But I'm doing that so I get the browse button. And then if I click on that, it'll take me to the material browser. Okay, so that's half the battle, just getting to the point where you can work with the materials. And then, you can see scrolling down, we've got quite a few materials already set up in this project. But I don't have a red paint. So I'm looking for a material that's going to be similar, and that's usually a good starting point. So I do have quite a few materials that are essentially paint finishes, and I can start with any of those. Even the finished material. The finished material actually is just a white paint. But I could go to any others that are similar. So parking stripe, believe it or not, is another quite similar material. It's just another paint finish essentially. So you can start with any of those materials, and that's something you need to get used to when you're starting with materials and wanting to make new ones. It's usually easiest if you start with one that's close to what you want. So then to make a new one, right click on the one you want to copy. So there, I've right clicked on parking stripe, and I'm going to go to duplicate and give it my new name. So it's simply going to be paint red. I've given the new name. Now I'm going to go straight to the appearance tab. So I'm leaving graphics for now. Remember that one though, because we're going to come back to it. If you see any others like identity, don't worry about those too much. It's just graphics and appearance you'll be using. So as I was saying, I'm going to leave graphics for now though and go to appearance. And then, this is the part that you need to force yourself to remember. You need to either duplicate or replace. If you don't do that, you'll find things will change without you realising or expecting that they're going to. Yeah. Yeah. The reason is, this is actually a material within a material.
So you make it.
So I've duplicated the material, now I'm duplicating the appearance. The appearance is part of the material. So yeah, that's confusing though, because you will think of the appearance like a material at first. But really the appearance is just one part or one aspect of the main material. So there, when you right click, at first it's probably going to be easiest if you go to replace instead of duplicate.
Because you've still got the original copy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, that's right, yeah. So I'm going to go to replace, and then you'll see something that looks like a material library, but it's actually just the appearance library. So this is the library of render materials. And a good thing to remember there is that you're changing the appearance. So use the appearance library folder here. Don't worry about the others. Just go to appearance, double click, and you can see you've got all these different categories. So these are pre-made materials, and I'll just show you some of them. So wood, you've got a lot of really large selection of basic wood or timber materials there, all made for you. Stone, same thing. Okay, so you can use any of these materials as they are.
And is this just in Revit?
Yep.
So we'd be able to access this from home?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. So they're the yep, they're all from the Autodesk library that come to the program. So I don't want any of these materials though that have a really interesting pattern. I want a really plain paint material, so I'm going to go to the paint folder, and there's no red paint. That's fine. I'm going to just double click on any of them because I know I can change the colour. So I might just double click on paint. We can't see any change yet, but if I close this, because I double clicked on it, we'll see it's gone into the appearance here. And there it is, paint, and it's got this plain white colour. So I'm going to click on the colour swatch here and change it to white, to red. That's what I want. Now, this is where things can get a bit tricky because the colour's changed, but it hasn't changed up here. And that's because other things can be affecting the colour. So I'm simply going to look here and I can see it's got this image, and then below that there's a name. If you see that, you can click on the arrow there and just remove image, and you'll see then it's going to get the colour. So it had a picture, which I've cleared, and then it's also got this bump option. If you don't need it, if you don't know why it's on, turn it off. So that's it gives a texture, essentially, which we don't need for a paint finish. So we've just got plain red. And if I want to change the colour, I can click on that colour swatch there. And of course, we've got little preset colours over here, but you can change the brightness slider over on the right, or you can choose any other colours if you want a different shade. Of course, you can just choose them from the colour selector there. There we go. So I'm sort of going for an Indian red, but you can experiment with colours there. You've got all 27 million you can get from that panel there. So that's it. I'm going to click OK. That's as far as I need to go now, so I'm going to click OK again. No, sorry. I missed a step, but that's good actually, because you can see then I can easily just go back to Browse to edit the material. I did the appearance, and that's red, but then I realised that I left part of it because I can see here this is still yellow. So that's because I didn't do the graphics. I can just go back to graphics now. There's a really handy option here. If you've done the appearance first, just tick Use Render Appearance. And you don't have to set the colour again, it'll just pick it up from the other tab. So that's it. OK. Now it's red. That's better. OK again, OK again. And notice how only this wall, if I click to the side you'll see it, only that wall's changed. If I'd forgotten to duplicate, all the walls that are 300 mil would have changed colour. I don't want that. So that's how you assign to a wall. Once you can assign a material to a wall, you can assign it to a floor. So I'm just going to select my floor and basically do the same thing again, just to get used to the process. So again, edit type. What do I do next? If I want to change just this floor and not the others. Exactly, duplicate, that's good. So yeah, duplicate. and I'll call it tile 150 mil. Next to structure, I'm going to click edit. This time it doesn't have finish assigned, it's got a different option for the material, but I can still click in the same spot, click browse, and now I'm going to go searching for something that looks like a tile, and all I've got there really are these ceiling tiles. It's okay, they're close enough. So I'm going to right click on the material, duplicate, and I'm going to call mine ceramic tile. So what do I do next? I've given the material a new name, and then what's the next thing you've got to force yourself? This is probably the least intuitive bit of it. Remember the appearance tab? So really try to force yourself to do this even before you understand why you're doing it, because it'll be a lot clearer later once you've done it a few times. So the trick is right click on there, on appearance, and then go to replace. So most of the things you'll need you can find in that appearance library again. And there we are, so we've got ceramic, and you'll see then there's a tile option or folder within that. And I'm happy if you use just the tiles from the library for this project. So I'm just going to let's go for the mosaic. Something different. Blue and red, that's not going to work, is it? Let's go for this one, mosaic grey. So again, double clicking here. You won't see much of a change until you close it, and then you should see the material go into your appearance tab. Now, I'm not going to change this one. I want it to keep the pattern there, and I want to leave the other option there, which is the relief option. So I don't need to do anything special. On the appearance, I'm going to go back to the graphics option though. And I can try using this option here, use render appearance. But what do you think it's going to do if I'm not using a plain colour there? So it's not like the material I did before where it was a simple colour, it was red. But here, notice how we've got this pattern of lots of different coloured tiles. So here, if I use this option, use render appearance, it's going to average those colours out. And it's going to give me a sort of a grey colour, which could be okay. But if you don't like it, you can turn the option off and then click on the colour swatch if you want to adjust it or change it to something different. Okay, the last thing I'll just show you though on the graphics tab is that you also have patterns. And so you've got a cut pattern option, which I'm going to leave for now because we're not really going to see this floor being cut just yet. But we are going to see the surface. So I'm going to change the surface pattern just by clicking on that picture there on the swatch. Then you get the options for your hatch patterns, essentially. These are just like hatch patterns in AutoCAD. And for tiles, you can normally just use a crosshatch. So I might go for I'll actually go for the 100 mil square because I've got fairly small tiles. That's it. So I'm just going to click OK a few times, and now in the shaded view, notice how I see the crosshatch pattern with that pale grey colour that I set on the graphics tab. But if I go to realistic down here, then I'm going to see the tile material that's based on the image or the photo. Okay, so walls, floors, and ceilings you'll find as well all work exactly the same way when it comes to materials. So I'll just quickly show you one more time how to get into it. When you select those things, edit type, next to structure, you can click on the edit button there to change it. Then you'll see the material slot. If you see more than one, it just means you've got extra layers, and I haven't shown you those yet, but most of your objects should only have the one layer. And then you can browse and then try to remember those steps that I showed you to make a new material. So those are all your main elements. So things like walls, floors, and ceilings. Families, so things like doors and windows and furniture, are a little bit different. And normally they're easier, but they also can be a little bit unpredictable as well. So if you select, for example, a door family, first place you should look actually is not the dialog box you get when you click on Edit Type. It's actually in Properties. So when you scroll in this panel, well, you can see with mine, it isn't giving me material for that door. But I'm going to get another family that's set up in a different way. Okay, so I'm going to get a furniture piece. Just a random something or other. Doesn't really matter. Okay, because these are all families. Doors, other pieces of furniture, even a book like this, which has gone in under my floor, but I'll just pull that out. Here's a book. So it's just another family, so the materials work in almost the same way. So that's just in the Revit library we've got on the P drive. So there you can see this one. Sorry, that's a bad choice because it's come from AutoCAD, so I'll get another one. I don't want to show you the AutoCAD ones just yet. So I should have just got one from here, which I know is set up in a certain way. Yeah, let's put it under here for now. I'm just going to go and change something. Don't worry about what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to get an option up that I want to show you. Where's the edit button gone? I forgot to change this over there. There we are. Okay, so all I wanted to show you there is that for some families, you'll even see the material come up here. Right, and there's a good reason it's set up like that. I'm probably showing you this in the wrong view, so I'll put it in, that's better. So I'll just put it in the courtyard. Right, so I've got the bench, and I'm just going to copy that a couple of times so you can see what this is all about. Okay, so if I select one of these now, you can see because the material is coming up in Properties, I can change this one, and I might just use the paint material that I made before, so I'm just going to choose that paint red, so it's something different. So notice how this one's changed, but the other one hasn't. So that's when you see it in Properties here, because remember the Properties here is showing you the properties for the object you've selected. So this object, you can see this bench, it's paint red, but this one is still fabric leather. Right, so that way each one can be different, which is really useful. Right, you often will want the same chair, but with different materials. But if you go to Edit Type, you can see I've got a material there as well. So why do they give you that option? Why have they put materials here instead of in Properties? So hopefully this will get you thinking about what Edit Type really means. This is editing the type property, so this means I'm not editing just the seat that I've selected, or the bench that I've selected. I'm editing all of the benches that are this type. And so this is actually the leg material. So the way this object has been set up, it'll allow me to set a different material to each of the seat part of these benches. So the fabric part, or the leather part, can be set to have a different material, each one. but they all have to have the same leg material because the leg material is in the type properties. Okay, so if that's confusing, really at first all you need to remember is that sometimes you'll get the material option in properties, sometimes you've got to go to edit type. And it's like that for a good reason. There's a really good reason for that. But if it's not clear at first, just try to remember that it can be in one of those two places. And then, oh yeah, so finally, so I've been showing you can change the materials for families that you get from the library. But what about the ones you've made? So select it, look in properties, there's no material option. Go to edit type. There is a material option, but it won't do anything. So remember I showed you, you can select the thing you've made and then go to edit in place. Then, when you select each of the parts, I'll start with the bench top maybe. What do you know? In properties, there's your material option. Okay, so again, just one of those steps you've got to get used to. I see it happen all the time. People tell me I've done everything I'm supposed to and I select my object and it won't let me change the material. And every time I know it's because I've forgotten to select it first and then edit in place, then again select the part you want to change. Then you'll see the material. Okay, so here, where it says material, I can click in the field, browse, and I've got the same list I had before. So I'll make one more material for you. I'm going to make this a timber bench top. So scrolling down towards the bottom, I've got a couple of wood materials, but they're not quite what I want. So I'm going to click on the one I want that's one that I've got that's closest to what I want. Right click, duplicate, and we'll call it timber. Oops, sorry. Oh, sorry, that's going on. It's better. Timber. Does anyone know any Japanese timbers off the top of their head? I can think of Polonia and a couple of others. I should know more. I do know some of them. I used to, but I just can't think right now. So I'm just going to make it ash, maybe we'll go for, which is more of an American thing, but I don't want to do bamboo. That's all I can think of. So I'll just do ash. We'll change it to something close later. Okay, so timber ash is what I'm calling it. And now, again, the same steps as before. And you will just get used to these. So go to the Appearance tab first, right-click, Replace, back to the Appearance Library folder. I can go down to Wood. And now, scrolling through this big list here, and I'm actually not going to use ash, I'm going to use something else, so maybe I'll just go for teak for now, because I'm going to double click on, oh no, sorry, I don't want that one actually, because I know that material. Maybe I'll go for one of the oak materials, so I'm going to double click on one of these. That might be a bit dark, so what about this one? There we go, so that's what I've chosen, white oak. When I close this, you can see it there, white oak. There's the image. I'm not going to change any options here. It's going to go back to appearance, so back to graphics. Tick use render appearance to try and get the colour. And that's it. OK. Click to one side, and we can see the materials assigned. So why do you think they make you going to edit the things you've modelled to assign the materials? Why do you have to select each solid or each thing you've modelled separately instead of just having an option to assign the material to the whole thing? Exactly, that's right, yeah. You normally will. So for a unit like this, you will have a couple of materials, at least. So the bench top may be one material, and then the cabinet might be different. So I can select that now, and then over here.
You know, to group it.
Oh yes, of course. So you can just use Control and select as many things as you want. So I can assign them together. And
And then pick all, and that would pick all of the material that comes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right, yeah. So maybe this one I'll make just for something different, a painted wood. So in other words, just a paint finish. So I'll quickly make a copy of the paint red material I made before. Same way, right click, duplicate, give it your new name. So I've given the name. Now going to the Appearance tab, here I'm not going to bother going to Replace because I just want to make a slight change to this. So instead of Replace, this time I'll choose Duplicate, and now I can change the colour. If you forget that step, it's going to change the original material. Okay, so again, back to graphics. The option there is already turned on, so that's done. Okay, click to one side and there's my black material. Okay, so that's it. So just make sure you try that. Try to assign a material to a wall or a floor or both as well, but definitely try to assign a material to your custom objects that you've modelled.